Okay, thanks for coming. I think we'll go ahead and get started now. Again, appreciate those of you who are here already. Thank you for coming. This is the PCA Master Plan Feasibility Study virtual workshop. This is our second workshop. Marlon, do you want to say anything to kick it off?
Sure. Thank you, Ryan, and good evening, everyone. I appreciate everyone joining us for what is now virtual public workshop number 2 and workshop number 3 for our PCH Master Plan Feasibility Study. This is an important effort for the district, the department, and the community as a whole. We know that Malibu in particular has experienced recent injuries and fatalities, and we need to make sure that we begin an effort that makes a difference in the community, especially on our Pacific Coast Highway. And this is a great opportunity for the community to provide input into the plan that will be developed. And the input that is shared here and through our public workshops are critical to the development of this plan. And we definitely just appreciate everyone taking time out of their busy day and schedule to just talk with us today and share what your thoughts, needs, desires are regarding improvements for PCH. And definitely, we will be having more workshops coming up in the summer and even into the fall. So please be on the lookout for future meeting invitations. But at the same time, we do have a website that is currently available for the general public, for anyone to view what we have put so far for the materials for the workshop and for the PCH Master Plan Feasibility Study. So with that, I know we have a good program here, as you see on the agenda. I'm looking forward to a lot of great input from our communities and, of course, folks that are very much caring about what happens in the future in the city of Malibu. So with that, just want to thank everyone for attending today. This workshop will be similar in nature to our first our workshop that was previously held last week virtually. This one is at a different time, of course, than the previous one, which was held earlier in the day. So hopefully those that were not in attendance last week are able to participate this evening. So with that, thank you again for taking the time out to participate today. And I'll pass it back to Ryan for the rest of our program. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Marlon. And I see Nadia's here from the city. Nadia, did you want to say any opening remarks? Can we unmute her?
Yes, give me a moment if All right, Nadia, you're a panelist now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nadia Fahum. I am an assistant civil engineer with the City of Malibu, and I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. We are excited to further these workshops and really begin what we can do to improve PCH. And I want to thank Caltrans again for putting this on. And so, yes, I'm excited to begin. Thank you all.
Thanks, Nadia. So my name is Ryan Snyder. I work in the planning division for Caltrans District 7, which is based in Los Angeles. And we are the district for Los Angeles and Ventura counties. And the agenda shows what we're going to do today. We've just done the welcome and introductions. We're going to have a brief presentation to show you sort of the context of the planning work that we're doing and the purpose of the workshop and how it all fits in with everything else that's going on. Most of tonight, we want to hear from you. We're going to conduct a survey live with you providing answers as we're meeting here tonight, and that's going to take most of our time. After we finish the survey questions, we'll have open comments and questions. So again, the real thrust of tonight is to hear from you. So let me share my presentation to kick this off here.
Stop sharing. And for everyone, so you know, when the open discussion does occur or when we're calling for questions, you can go ahead and raise your hand, or you can put your question in the chat. Either one works.
Very good. Now, can everybody see my first slide here?
Yeah, I can see Ryan.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Okay. All right, it's not advancing. Let me try it this way. Okay. So the purpose of tonight's workshop is to hear from you, hear from the community. We want to hear about your issues and especially your preferences. The purpose of the study that we're doing, that this workshop is for, is threefold. First, we want to analyze existing conditions and identify safety priorities. This effort is a plan to modify PCH in Malibu to make it safer. That is the primary purpose. So we want to identify projects that would reduce the number and severity of crashes, things that we can do to PCH to change it and make it safer. We also want to plan safe travel options for pedestrians and bicyclists. The study area is PCH within the city of Malibu. It's 22 miles long. So it's just this portion of it is just within the city. There are simultaneously other efforts going on to improve safety in PCH. We have what's called the director's order, which includes a number of things that are being done right now that can be done very quickly in short term to try to make things safer. This would include some signage, some delineator posts, some speed feedback signs, and the like. So a few of those sorts of things, some pavement markings to try to slow cars down a little bit, or things that are happening right now. And you can see those changes going out as we speak. We are also preparing a State Route 1 climate resiliency and transportation safety plan. A portion of that will analyze, and we'll do the very same thing that we're doing for PCH in Malibu. It will do that same thing for PCH outside of the city in Malibu. And that part of that will happen later on. Simultaneously, we're rehabbing some of the pavement, putting in some bike lanes, specifically between Cross Creek and Webb Way. Some improvements to pedestrian crossings are being made, and some other spot signal improvements and streetlights are being improved. We also have a study that was done in 2015 for the city that lists 130 different actions to make things on PCH safer, and some miscellaneous spot improvements are being done as we speak right now. We are analyzing the crashes on PCH in Malibu. This is going to be a really important step for us to understand the problem. We want to know where crashes are occurring, and we've got data that will inform us as to what the causes of the crashes are, and look at all of the details. And that will give us information that will enable us to assign what we call countermeasures, that, modifications, changes to these locations that should make them safer. We're also looking at, very much the same time, bicycle and pedestrian crashes. So analyzing, what are causing these, where are they occurring, and what we might be able to do to try to alleviate some of those crashes. And now tonight we're going to be talking specifically about cross-sectional improvements. In other words, we're not dealing as much with intersections tonight, but sort of the lengths of PCH. What can be done on the cross section? There are different types of bike lanes that we can put in. The one on the left here shows a sort of basic bike lane that's striped. We're accustomed to those. The one on the right shows what we call a buffered bike lane. So it's a bike lane, but it also has some paint that provides a little bit of distance and buffer between the cyclists and the motor vehicles. We sometimes will color bike lanes to make them more visible. And what we call protected bike lanes. Sometimes we put in physical barriers, like this one shown here is both parking and physical barriers between the moving vehicles and the bicyclists. We're also looking at the possibility of putting things like landscaped medians in. And where we have medians or just islands, we can really do a lot to improve pedestrian crossings and make them safer. Another measure that we can take is to put in what we call gateways that would inform motorists that they are entering a new area. So these ones shown here, the one is for San Leandro, the other is for historical Temecula. And gateways can be used to really slow cars down. It notifies them that they are entering a different part of the community. So this would probably be most appropriate for the central parts of Malibu, near the pier where a lot of the restaurants and homes are. And this one in Temecula is one that I've watched, and it's really astounding how you see the approach to this gateway is a high-speed arterial street where cars are going 45, 50 miles an hour. When they go through that gateway, they slow down to about 25 or so. It really changes things. So this is a potential measure that we can use. We're also looking at other countermeasures for intersections that we'll be working on as we identify intersection problems. Some of these might include what we call curb extensions. We can put in pedestrian leading intervals where the walk signal comes on before the green signal goes for motorists. This gives the pedestrians time to get out there before turning vehicles come. It's also a standard in California now. We also have pedestrian hybrid beacons that blink when a pedestrian is crossing the street and provide more visibility. So these are just a few. There are many more countermeasures for intersections and crossings that we can apply, but these are just a few samples. This is another one for intersections. We could replace, in the right context, traffic signals with roundabouts. Roundabouts, the research on roundabouts is very solid. They reduce crashes and severity of crashes significantly. And they also have about 30% more capacity to handle traffic. The steps that we're going through in our study are shown here. We are in these first two phases now. We are collecting information about crashes and other statistics, traffic volumes. And this is the engagement. So what we're doing tonight is part of our community engagement. That is ongoing and will continue throughout the study time. Once we've got all that information collected from the first round, so tonight is the last of our first round of workshops, we're going to do some analysis on what we heard and couple that with the data that we've collected and the crash information that we've collected. And from that, we'll develop some project concepts that we believe will help address the issues that we saw and will help respond to what we're hearing from the public. And the last phase of this, once we've again brought sort of these draft concepts to the community, we'll present a draft and final study. Our community engagement has three primary prongs to it. Number one is the community charrette that we had a couple weeks ago and the workshops like we're doing tonight. This is to collect information from the public. We have surveys that we're doing. We're going to do the survey tonight, but these will also be posted on our interactive website. And we will post, now I think, Alex, did you post the website in the chat, the link to that?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay, I know I saw somebody that asked for that, so great, thank you. So we'll have that interactive website that provides opportunities for people to comment. And this is for any attendees tonight. If you want to add comments, or if you know people who would have liked to have come tonight that couldn't for one reason or another make it, please invite them to visit our website and make comments there. These are the remaining public engagement events. We've already had, like I mentioned, the first community workshop, which we called a charrette, where people actually drew on aerial photographs, things that they would like to see. And that was July 11th. Last week we had one of these virtual workshops. Tonight is our last virtual workshop from what we were calling round one, our initial collection of information from the public. And it's identical to the workshop we had a week ago. Round two will begin August 28th. We're going to have an in-person event at City Hall where we will present alternatives that we believe reflect what the community told us their preferences are. And we would like to get some feedback on those alternatives. We'll also present some information that we've gathered on intersections. On September 12th, we'll have another virtual workshop like we're doing tonight, and it will be the same type of thing that we're doing on the 28th of August. For people who couldn't attend the in-person workshop, they want to attend virtually or they want to comment some more, we'll be presenting the same thing and collecting information on that. And then in the sort of November, December timeframe, we'll have a third round to go over the draft study. We will finish this study by the end of December. Okay, now we're getting ready to go into our survey. And what we want to hear from you is what your preferences are. We have looked at the entire length of PCH within Malibu and identified about 5 different types of cross sections that are very common that pretty much represent the whole length. And you'll see these in aerial, and we're going to go through them one by one. And I'll explain those a bit in a minute. But for each one of these, we want to hear from you of all these types of cross-sectional elements. So we've got travel lanes, turn lanes, bike lanes, bus lanes, striped buffers, bus stops, sidewalks, paved shoulders, unpaved shoulders, outdoor parking or parklets and seating, or striped buffers with the lint, parking, concrete and or landscape medians. And with the parking, we'll break it down: parking on the mountainside and parking on the beach side. We don't have space to include everything. So we're going to have to sort of budget the space that we have and make trade-offs and understand what the priorities are, what we can fit in and what we can't based on priorities. So that's really the nature of the exercise tonight. And what we're going to end up with is, and these are just a few samples of the types of things that could come out of this. You know, the number of the travel lanes, landscape medians, on-street parking, bike lanes, protected bike lanes, and, you know, just another example. And these are just a few samples, but there could be many different types, many different ways. And each one of these sort of 5 typologies will have something different. Now, I want to explain the 5 typologies. And again, these, we believe, represent pretty much the entire 22-mile stretch of Malibu. This is one that is housing on both sides. And I believe this is in that area sort of between Carbon Canyon and, I'm sorry, what is that? Las Flores, right? And this is one, we're going to come back and do each one of these separately. So this is one, housing on beachside, nothing on the mountainside. This is sort of at the western end. This is commercial activity and housing on both sides. This is the central part of Malibu. This next one is sort of mixed and scattered commercial on both sides. This is Cross Creek to Webb Way. And then the western edge, the western end, and some other portions as well, have no development on either side. So for each one of these typologies, we want to hear again what your priorities are for the cross-sectional elements. And with that, here's the first one. Before we begin, I want to hear if there are any clarifying questions that you have. Anyone? So it's all pretty clear what we're going to do? And it may come clearer as we post.
We have one hand raised,
Okay.
Ryan. This is Elena.
Hi, Elena.
Elena, I just unmuted you. You should get a request.
For the discussion tonight. One clarifying question that I had, and I just put it in the chat, is whether or not in these sections that you're going to show us tonight, you are addressing the private encroachments that are in the right of way that will impede eligibility for an election of the various things you just had on the last slide.
That's a very good point. We have somebody who is doing a survey of the whole length of PCH in Malibu as we speak. And I know it's challenging where there are encroachments, we're hoping that real soon we'll have all that information we need. But you're absolutely right. We are aware that there are places where the right-of-way looks narrower than it actually is because there has been some level of encroachment. So that's definitely something we're aware of and we'll be looking at and taking into consideration. Now, are you aware, is it primarily landscaping that you're aware of, or is it actually buildings?
It's both, and I was just putting in the chat as well. Who's going to do the encroachment study? Is that Caltrans that's going to do that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And will you, is there a point person leading that study?
Yes, we have somebody in surveys that's doing that.
And can you give us the contact information?
We can get that to you. I don't have it off the top of my head right here. I know his name's Refugio, but I can't speak to the sort of the details that he's looking at exactly, but I know that that's one of the things he'll be working on. Are you aware of some specific encroachments that might be useful for him to be aware of?
I work for an agency that provides public access to the coast, so I am aware of many encroachments.
Yeah. Can we take a note to be in contact with you after this?
Absolutely. I'll put my contact information in the chat.
Thanks, Alana.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before we begin the survey?
Yeah, we have another hand raised. This is Helen. Helen, I just unmuted you.
Hi, Helen.
Elena, we obviously need the surveys. I would like to know that information as well. My chat is disabled, so how can I type in the chat to ask these questions? Oh my God, can you even hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we can hear you. That's odd. Yeah, I don't know why the chat isn't working. We're getting chats from other participants. You just not even see it, or?
Lou Charles saying, hello, Elena, please put any comment. Kessel Alexander, feasibility study project website, everyone. I usually use Zoom. I don't know what this is, but I would like to use the chat, and it says it's disabled. Public chat has been disabled.
Huh.
It should still allow you to send chats to us.
Nope.
They won't be viewable by other participants. Have you tried entering anything into it?
Yeah, public chat has been disabled. Okay, well, I can't even read what other people are saying because of this service, but if you could try to undo it, that would be great. My question also is there any way to negotiate with, I guess it's coastal, one side of parking and have the other side reserved for a two-way bike lane with protection to have more?
That's exactly the type of thing that we're looking for comments tonight. If
Oh,
that's what your preferences, if that's what your preference is, please reflect that in the,
okay.
yeah. And then, by the way, let me go to our last slide here.
Yeah.
And you put the website in, right? Yeah. So did you get the website, Helen?
I did get that. I would like to just have the interaction capability of the chat, but it's not allowing me. So I have your website.
Right.
I have everything printed out. I have all of the studies. I know what's going on, but I don't know what's possible. I think it's great
Okay.
having this dialogue, but like Ellen has said from probably MRCA, there are so many different easements and allow. I think this could be a waste of time because you don't know what you're allowed to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if we're unable to get this working tonight, do you have the email?
Yeah, I've got it. Yeah.
Yes, please be in contact with, and we can be in contact with you afterwards.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any other hands up?
Yes, we have one more person. This is
And
Kay Hale.
basically, clarification about what we're doing is primarily what we're looking for. Once we get into it, it may answer some of these questions.
Yeah, hi, this is Craig Hill. I'm a Malibu City Planning Commissioner. Just wanted to confirm that I have the same problem with the chat thing, so it's not just Helen. It is a more global problem. And I'll talk later. Thank you.
Thanks, Craig. All right, how are we doing? We good now?
Yeah, I think we're good. We can go ahead and launch the
Okay, we're going
survey.
to launch the survey now. And I will keep, so this, we're going to do this first one, this cross section here, housing on both sides. And this is represented by, again, Las Flores to Carbon Canyon Road. There are some other stretches that have this same cross section, but this is a very representative sample. So in the survey there, it's asking you to rank these elements that you would like to see. And again, we don't have space for everything. Well, we're going to try to find out, we want to understand what your priorities are, and do the best we can to put something in that reflects priorities. So if you could we'll give you about 4.5 minutes to rank these elements for this particular typology of PCH in Malibu.
If anyone's having issues accessing the survey through WebEx, you'll be able to access it, or you can access it currently through our website. Just want to reiterate that. I can put a link back into our chat. Lisa, you had a question. You said how to unmark a selection on the survey. You should be able to select options and kind of move them around. I just unmuted you. Are you seeing that? Okay, not hearing anything, Lisa. If again, if you're having issues with it, I'll just direct you to the website.
And these very same questions are in the website.
And
Yeah.
Helen, you had a question?
Yeah, the chat being disabled is really clumsy, unfortunately, because I don't want to have to keep asking these questions. I wonder why it's not working. But basically, like for this survey, because I think you have many, many surveys, which I can appreciate, I'm just wondering because there's questions, like there's choices that I don't understand like the risk versus, like I would love a center median, but you need emergency vehicles, right? So like, are you just asking, just like right off the bat, like what I would like to see in the order in which, no matter the feasibility, because it's impossible to do these things.
Right, and we're quite aware of the emergency access portion of it.
Gotcha.
So yeah, just rank your
Okay.
preferences.
Okay. And if you can, in the meantime, please try to make the chat. I would be so grateful if you could help make that chat workable.
Yeah, I'm looking into that. I'm testing my personal computer and I'm able to
Oh, maybe because I'm on
chat.
my iPhone? I don't know.
It's possible. I believe you.
Oh,
That's very strange that you're having the issue on your end.
thank you.
I'll try to see what I can find on my end right now.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Got about another minute for this question, then we'll move to the next one.
Another question from David. David, I just unmuted you.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great, thanks. Hey, thanks for doing this. This particular section between Los Flores and Carbon's obviously, or at least, I mean, obviously, but in my opinion, is the worst of the whole PCH stretches where the young women were killed. There've been 3 or 4 other pedestrians. I know there've been a number of bike accidents along there. But the one thing you're not addressing is further to the west. This area near where MRCA just recently opened the beach up.
Yeah, we've got the 5 different typologies, and I think it'll cover them all.
Okay, I mean, I'm talking about on this same stretch.
Okay.
Before you get to.
Yeah, why don't we defer comments to after we're done with the survey?
All right.
Okay. All right. Let's go with the second segment, please. And this is so that's what we got on the first. So this segment is housing on beachside, no development on the mountain side. And this is really quite a bit the sort of the west end within Malibu.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go ahead and start.
Helen, did you have another question?
About the survey?
No, actually,
Yes.
I didn't. I just may not have.
Oh, lower your hand. Okay.
Yeah,
No
thank
problem.
you.
Mhm.
I don't see the survey though. Is it coming?
You said you're accessing through a mobile device, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you should see it. I think I was told from someone who was accessing on mobile, you might see it's like a 3 dots, like a little ellipses.
Oh, okay.
If you select that,
Polling.
yes, polling.
It says after the host or co-host opens a poll, you'll see the poll questions here. I'm so sorry. I don't know why this is so clumsy. I'm used to Zoom. Where Slido? Active session, would that be it? Nope.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going into Slido because the last one for Las Flores just popped up on my screen and I did it.
Yeah, it must have closed out. Are you seeing it now when you opened up the Slido?
See your picture of this a picture containing a text ground outdoor description automatically generated. Like,
Okay. Do you see any of the options or the ranking options or any options on the picture?
options? No. I just see
Should
a
like. Yeah.
option.
Okay.
I have to come to the in-person. I was out of town. It's just this is too difficult.
No. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. No, I apologize that you're having so many issues. I would just say you can access it through our website. That survey is up, and will
No,
be
I do this like right now. I cleared my night for it. It's too important. I'm gonna get on my laptop and re-log in.
Okay.
Yeah. Is it the same thing where you have questions and I rate things?
Exactly. Yes,
Anybody
it would be
else have
ranking them.
issues like from Malibu, from the Malibu public? Nobody else is having issues?
I think
Everybody's good?
one person commented earlier that they were having issues, but so far we haven't had anything else in our chat.
Right. I'm gonna go back into. I'm sorry, I don't know. Layout. I see Schneider, Ryan, DOT. Are there anybody other people from Malibu, like residents on here? Because I can't even see the participant list.
I'm a resident.
Okay, cool. And you're able to do this?
Yes, but I'm on a laptop.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do this on my laptop. Thank you.
Mhm. Ian, yes, you had a question. I just unmuted you.
Are we supposed to select all 11 like in a rank ordered fashion, or if we don't care for some of them, we just leave them unselected?
Yeah, you can leave them unselected if you want.
Does it affect the
Drop to
ranking
the
if we
bottom.
put them last versus unranking?
Well, if you really want them to be last, you might want to rank all of them, but otherwise they'll kind of fall out
All right,
as
thank you.
low priority. So got about another minute. For this question.
I'm going to go ahead and close this one, Ryan.
Yeah, okay. Now, before we move to the next one, I want to make sure we get any, much of these technical glitches out of the way before we go to the next question. Are there any other people, anyone else having technical questions or problems? before, or questions about what we're doing before we move to the next question?
Unmute Helen again. Helen?
Specifically about the survey that we're doing.
Okay, sorry. Yes, I'm still not able. I'm out now on my laptop, but I'm still not able to do the survey. And I'm sorry. I would love to do the survey. I see a chat now. I said hello, but where would the survey be?
Receive that. Well, right now we
I did it. Okay.
we can open up the type 1 again. Maybe at the end if you want to fill
Sure.
that out.
At the end. I don't want to
Yeah.
waste everybody's time. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll go with the third question now, but we can try to circle back to the first ones you missed. So
Thank you.
mm-hmm.
Okay, anybody else having issues or problems or again, questions about what we're doing before we move to the next question? Okay, let's go to the third one then. Okay, so this one, this is the central part of Malibu. This is commercial on both sides, housing on both sides. This is really a carbon canyon to the pier. So, and this is an area that there has been talk about sort of making this a bit more of a boulevard setting or Main Street setting. So it's a little bit different from some of the other contexts. So go ahead and do your rankings for this one.
Oh my God.
Just a clarifying question. Gateways was not something that was on the previous ones. What is a gateway?
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry, what did you say? What is a gateway?
Yes.
I don't know if you caught the slideshow or not at the beginning. A gateway is something that notifies motorists that they are entering a new place. It might be an arch that goes over.
Okay, great.
Road.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Helen, when she was looking at the slides, to find the polls, it's under the Slido option on the right side. I'm not, for me, so just a.
Why was gateways not an option for any place else?
Well, this is where it would be most appropriate. I mean, you could make a general comment later on if you want to, if you think it's appropriate somewhere else, but this is the sort of context where it would typically be used and would be most effective.
Okay, understood.
Hi, I'm sorry. I click on Slido on the right, which was a great suggestion. And oh, I see it. Okay, perfect. So I think I got it. Thank you, whoever helped me with that. It's under Slido, 4-lane center turn. Thank you. I got it.
Great. About another minute.
I'm going to go ahead and close this one.
Okay, very good. So now this next question is unique to this section. Again, there has been some talk about, that some people are interested in taking this central part of PCH, really in, an area where we've got all this commercial activity and the beach and housing and restaurants and everything. There's been talk about sort of changing the character of it. Right now, it is a high-speed highway that goes through this busy area. Now, it is possible to redesign this highway in a way that makes it feel more like a boulevard or a main street. The types of things that we would do for that would be like gateways, median landscape, wider sidewalks, and bike lanes. So here, this is a simple question. Pick one of these two. Would you like to see the character change to make it more of a boulevard? That's option number one. Or would you like to see this segment stay the same and keep traffic moving? That's number two. How we doing, Alex? Does it look like most people have responded?
Yes, it does. Yeah, we got 11 the last time, 11 this time. So I'll go ahead and
Okay.
close it.
Okay, so we're ready for the next. So we just have two more segments, and then we're going to open it up. Wow, people like the boulevard. Okay, next segment for the fourth question. So this one is sort of mixed commercial on both sides, a little bit scattered. Cross Creek to Webb Way is really where this is. So same questions. What are your ranking preferences of what goes in this cross section? And we'll give you, again, 4.5 minutes for this.
Hello. I was wondering if there's a reason why a roundabout or some sort of half roundabout in this wider area. Maybe this isn't the right area because this is just
How about we save this question for open discussion?
perfect. No problem.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ron, we had a question in the chat from Helen. It was when we're voting for bike lanes, I need to know more specifics on what these lanes will be like.
Well, they could be, again, were you able to see the presentation, Helen? Where we showed the regular bike lanes, the colored bike lanes, the buffered bike lanes, and protected
Yes,
bike
you gave us
lanes?
3 options, and so I'm wondering, like, when we say bike lanes, is it just voting on those 3 options or 4 options? Or, I mean,
Yeah,
right now they were called they're called bike lanes right now, like as
right,
is,
yeah.
but they're
So we'll capture the type of bike lane more in open discussion, and then probably there'll be some discussion about that when we go to the second round of workshops.
perfect. Thank you.
And then we had a comment from Lisa Garrett as regarding PCH between Cross Creek and Webway, there isn't a center turn lane. There's a concrete median currently in place.
Right. Yeah. So if you mark keep the center turn lane, then we'll take that to mean that you want a turn lane there instead of the median. Okay, how are we doing, Alex? About another half minute?
Yeah, we're at 10 votes now. We got 11 last time. So yeah, we can give it another minute.
Okay.
Another comment from Lisa is the bus doesn't travel along this portion of PCH.
Okay. It potentially could in the future, though. Are we sure there's a bus that goes out here? It doesn't. I guess this portion of it goes in closer to City Hall. But, okay, let's move to our last question. And then we'll open it up for discussion. So this next segment is no development on either side. And this is mostly typified for much of what's west of Trancas Canyon. So let's go ahead and answer this question.
And just so everyone knows, getting to some like kind of regular comments that I won't announce, but these are all being recorded and documented. So any feedback you give will utilize. All right, we're at 11 again. We can go ahead and close this one.
Okay, that was quick. I guess people are getting used to it.
Yep.
All right, well, that's going to close this section out. Thanks so much. We're going to open it up for discussion.
Oh, excuse me, Ryan, we do have the survey, the demographic questions.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's go ahead with that.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be pretty quick.
Yeah. And then we can open up, while we're doing the discussion, I'll open up the first two again for people who weren't able to access it initially.
Okay. Yeah, so these questions are just so we understand a little bit about, your who you are and your perspective and so forth.
We can give it another minute. It seems like most of the votes are in.
Good.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close out of this.
Okay, great. All right, thanks. Okay, let's open this up for discussion, questions, comments.
If you have any questions, you can go ahead and put it in the chat. We'll see them, or you can raise your hand. Helen, you raise your hand first. You're unmuted.
Hello, thanks again. I'm curious why Zuma, the turn off with all of that construction or whatever it is, like the entrance to Zuma Beach is not on this, the Trancas intersection, the Winding Way mess with the hikes and the Heathercliff intersection is not on this survey?
Well, this particular survey is really looking at cross sections.
Oh, gosh.
We're going to have a look at intersections as we get further into our crash analysis.
Okay.
That should show up.
And when
better.
will that meeting be?
Well, we're going to do our analysis between now and August 28th on intersections, and we'll bring that back to the next round starting August 28th, and then the virtual in September.
Okay, so you're not doing a voting survey on cost?
No, intersections are pretty complicated, but if we understand where you think there's a problem, we'll take a look at it. If you want to help us understand what you think the problem is.
I would love to. How would I do that?
Well, comment right now would be a good time. And Helen, did I hear that are you from the Coastal Commission?
Nope, definitely not. I'm a resident
okay.
of Malibu. The other gal, Alina, I believe might have been from MRCA.
Okay.
She was the first one who spoke about all of the easements that you guys are going to have a problem. You might get tripped up with all of the commissions that Malibu has to deal with, like coastal and MRCA. You guys are
Right.
sandwiched between two dueling commissions.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
And we would probably like to meet with them as well.
Yeah, I bet. They really they run a lot of the city.
Yeah. So if you want to tell us what issues you see at those locations, we can do that now.
Oh, I would love to, for sure. Okay, so real quickly, we have a really busy hike at Winding Way and PCH, and there's not. So the hike has happened. The hike was fine a few years ago before social media came and took over. We have these easements all around Malibu that a lot of the residents have given over some of their property. Therefore, we love the public coming, but not in this volume. And so there's no checks or balances anymore. So you're going to have Caltrans will probably have a lot of lawsuits or accidents at these kind of choke points because there's not enough parking and there's not enough patrol. And there's been like maybe thousands of tickets on the PCH Winding Way you could look at. You could even, and then you have the coastal for multiple fatalities. Then you have the coastal commission on the other side of the PCH that wants to give everybody beach access, right? So it's not as simple as like the residents. You have 17 million visitors. Right. I mean, up to visiting. Right. So that's Winding Way. Then you have Paradise Cove, and that's a bit of a cluster as well. So right after Winding Way, where people are trying to find parking to get off the PCH to go to the hikes, you have Paradise Cove, which is like over capacity and absolutely crazy in the summer. Then you go down the street more and you have Heathercliff, which seems like pretty okay, but that's unfortunately where Michael Shane's daughter Emily died in 2010. And then you have the Zuma Beach mess because they have somebody, I don't know somebody closed the entrance to Zuma Beach, making it a backup. So there's one entrance and all of the roads, the bridges are flooded underneath. And because it's an environmental issue, nobody's cleaning it out. So there's no access. That would be a great place for a roundabout and a pedestrian bridge because you have a shopping center, plus you have Bush Drive and you have Bonsall. Both are redundant. But then you have up the coast, you have Trancas, which, Broad Beach to the left, to the beach, and you have Trancas, and you have the shopping center. You could also think about some sort. Then you have the bridge construction. And that really covers it for me and the northern part of Malibu. I was just wondering, because those seem like huge problems.
Yeah, and you're right, they are, and they're not easy. There aren't easy answers to a lot of these things. Well, I mean, relatedly, some of the problems we have are, for example, people parking on the mountainside and crossing the road to get to the beach.
100% true. And
near Paradise Cove, people parking along PCH there and then walking from their car in a very narrow place between the parked cars and the high-speed car traffic.
Really, honestly, truly, you have a huge issue because of that, because we give our parking to coastal because they want, and it's great for people to come to beaches, but there's not enough parking for that to happen. So it's a bit of a cluster because you have babies and children's and beach umbrellas running across PCH in both directions because they're going to the hikes in the mountains and they're going to the beach on the other side. And there is not enough crosswalks or speed lights because we're actually a highway. And I would love to change it to Pacific Coast 1, get rid of the idea of it being a highway. And but that's like legislation, and that's Sacramento, because you have a lot of these commissions that you're going to fight up against because of the accesses in Malibu.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous.
You just identified some of the difficult challenges that we have.
I would love to help you in any way that I can, and I really appreciate that you guys are doing this. And I'm trying to tell everybody, because you can't complain. I'm raising kids here without getting involved. It's the most dangerous aspect of this city, and it's not. It hasn't been built for this much volume and not enough change. Like the city has changed, but the highway hasn't. So now you guys we have to help each other figure it out, because gateways are awesome, roundabouts are awesome, but it's going to put the residents, they're going to be bummed. Because,
Yeah, yeah. So I saw a question from Lee.
yeah.
Lee, did you, what you want to say your question?
Yeah, sure. So, Helen, appreciate your comments.
And Lee, by the way, is our traffic safety chief.
So good evening, everyone. Helen, thank you. I've observed a little bit of the insanity around Winding Way back in probably springtime on a weekend. I happened to be going through the area and people were parked and trying to run across to the east side of the roadway, or north side of the roadway, whichever way you want to look at it, and get to the hike area. But I'm curious if you would have some suggestions for us as to times of the year and specific weekends or periods of weekends you would recommend pedestrian counts occur, because our team is having some discussions with Rob DeBow about some pedestrian counts now in one location. And we've had some discussions with them as well. And it would probably be helpful for the team to get some input from the local residents that drive the route every day.
Yes, I really appreciate this question, Lee. I really have a good answer for you. My husband actually will tell it to you.
So we accidentally, we happen to have cameras that identify when people are walking. You know, it's a security system that has an AI that identifies people. And on some Sundays, there's more that the biggest Sunday, we had 3,000 people, 700 cars parked, and 3,000 people walked the Winding Way road. So 700 cars were parked, hundreds of tickets were given. There's been multiple fatalities there. And it's due to the waterfall. So there is an easy solution. The solution would be to limit the parking by putting no parking spots along the PCH there. And MRCA has a large multi-acre lot that actually is closer to the head of the trail that's accessed by Latigo. And there's a big area there that could be a large parking lot that could actually hold off of PCH. So they would turn right on Latigo Canyon, go up just a small amount up Latigo Canyon. And obviously the speed limit on Latigo Canyon is 25 miles an hour, not 55 miles an hour. And people on PCH drive at 60 or 70, but Latigo, it's nearly impossible to do that. And then there's a large parking lot, and the residents here and others would be willing to chip in to maintain that parking lot.
Yeah, we could talk about it. I know.
But
it's a discussion.
The danger is that people wait to park on PCH for both reasons, to go to the hike and now to go to some of the beach accesses down on Paradise Cove. So what's happened is cars slam on their brakes when they see what is a possible parking spot. And as you know, a motorcyclist was killed there. There's been several fatal accidents over the last few months. And it's mostly because cars block the lanes waiting to try to get a parking spot. And so if we could just say no parking,
well, you could
put a bike lane and then put a large parking lot right off of Latigo, which accesses 100% of the trail. The trail is easier to get to. It's not trying to limit.
Not even through, that's exactly.
And it's not walking on a street, then it's all 100%
There's
walking on a dirt
blind
trail.
Curves for these kids that they walk in the street. There's blind curves up here. But anyway, getting back to Caltrans, which is PCH.
No,
yeah.
Helen, it's Helen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I will take a look. I'll try and follow up. I've been doing some discussions with Chris Frost on the Public Safety Commission.
Yeah, I met with Rob yesterday.
Okay, if you or your husband could reach out to maybe Chris and Keegan and Susan Duenas, Rob DeBow. I've taken some notes. I will look at that.
And we have videos and photographs and everything.
Can I have
that you
your
can imagine.
email? Can you put your email? Because I've emailed Susan, I've emailed Keegan, and it's kind of difficult sometimes. But if you could put your email, that would be great.
Okay, please don't spam me though.
Oh, I swear I won't. Thank you. I won't. I promise.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, we've got lots of challenges and things to balance. I mean, it's not easy. So, if we're able to find a solution to parking issues, that'll give us space to put bike lanes and it might solve some things. But, you know, there might be areas where we'd like to put bike lanes and we'd like to remove parking, but it, you know, people need it for other purposes. So anyhow, other questions, and I see there's quite a few comments in the chat.
There is. We've also had some hands up for a while. I'm going to try to go in order in which I saw him first. First I saw was David Cranston. Oh, you're unmuted.
Okay, thank you again. So yeah, as I mentioned before, I am a resident. I'm also, you know, I'm a motorist, I'm a pedestrian, and I'm a cyclist. I'll sort of focus a little bit on cyclist perspective because, you know, you may not have the same perspective as I do. And to me, the most important thing, and I'm really glad you're doing this, and the cross-sectional stuff is just having a safe place for bicycles and for pedestrians. We need, you know, we need sidewalks for pedestrians. We need bike lanes, and there are, you know, and I totally agree with what Helen was saying about Winding Way. I mean, I'm familiar, I mean, with every inch of this road because I've ridden it up and down PCH hundreds of times. And Winding Way on a weekend is one of the worst. Surf Rider's awful. Noble is bad, and you know, in the afternoon. But also, you know, the stretch between Carbon and Las Flores is just awful. I mean, it's, you know, it's probably the narrowest. You probably know better than me. Narrowest portion of PCH. The shoulders are narrow. There's no place for people to walk. Really, the sidewalks are cluttered, or probably because of the encroachment that I think Elena had raised earlier. And this is, you know, we've had what, at least 7 or 8 pedestrian deaths just in that stretch in the last 7 or 8 years. And I think that makes that stretch of PCH one of the most dangerous pedestrian stretches in the entire country. And we just treat it like it's, you know, nothing all that big of a deal, but it's really awful. And I mean, there's data to prove that. Look at the Journal of Transport and Land Use and the study they did in 2021 regarding the most dangerous pedestrian stretches, and they didn't look at this one, but our stats are right up there with the very worst. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, and one of the things along that stretch that I'm glad Elena is here is that, and you know, and this sort of goes to this, you know, kind of the options on the cross-sectional survey, is that new, you know, MRCA has just opened this part of the beach of La Costa. They put up the sign. They were very excited about inviting all these folks to show up, but they did absolutely nothing to provide for pedestrian safety. And that is a super dangerous spot. Folks are speeding.
What is that again? Which spot? I'm sorry, I missed that.
So at the east, you know, between Carbon and La Costa, there is a stretch of fence that was taken down by MRCA to open it up for pedestrian access, which is all fine and good, but it's kind of on what people call that dead man's curve. And so you have a lot of visitors from out of Malibu who really don't understand how dangerous PCH is and how fast the cars are moving. So they're either parking on the ocean side or land side. If they're on the land side, they're crossing in an extremely dangerous spot. And if they're on the ocean side, or both sides really, they're also just oblivious to bicycles. And because of that curve and the narrowness, it creates kind of a really bad situation. I've had folks kind of coming back to their cars, look at me coming, you know, trying to hug the, the fog line to stay, you know, because it's a bad place to be in the traffic lane because of the curve there, and they'll just throw open their car door, forcing me into the travel lane. I'm just praying there's not a car there when that happens. And like I said, there are maybe 5 or 6 really bad spots along PCH. That's one of the worst. And you know, Elena, I hope you take it to heart and don't take offense, but I really think MRC needs to do something about warning those pedestrians, but I hope Caltrans does something, and I don't know what that is, to make that a safer spot, both for those pedestrians as well as for the cyclists that have to ride by them. The other thing, and this is something really for Caltrans, their signs, you guys put up those big signs, those digital, I don't know, they're digital, the big orange signs.
Feedback signs.
Yeah. They're usually you put them in a position. This is true with the cones that get put out a lot of times where they're providing no room for cyclists. We're always trying to grab what little part of the shoulder we can use. But when you put those cones right up to that fog line, we got no place to go other than go back into the travel lane. And sometimes that happens, it happens quickly. You don't have a chance to, make sure that you're safely moving into that lane. And it's had that over and over. And it's like, it's sort of ironic and absurd when you see slow down for pedestrians and it's forcing me out into the traffic lane. But same is true. We see cones that get put out for construction purposes or by Caltrans or trash cans. And again, when they put them right up to that fog line, we have no shoulder to use, and we're back into the travel lane. And then the Caltrans maintenance is also a big factor, because if you've got a lot of potholes, those seams, you've got these unrepaired seams. And when I say seam, do you know what I mean by that?
Yes.
Okay, so they're just about big enough to grab a bike tire, and when that happens, you're throwing off your bike, and if you're in a traffic lane, it's it could probably be deadly. But even
especially if you're on a road bike.
Pardon me?
Especially if you're on a road bike.
Yeah, exactly. And when you have these potholes or other sort of problems, in there, those two can really throw you off. There was a big, I don't even know what you call it in highway terms, but there was a big bubble or bump on PCH, a couple of years ago. And as you're coming down towards Trancas on the eastbound side, and you're kind of looking for traffic. There were some other folks in the road. I hit that bump, and when you hit a bump or something like that, it can, if you're not prepared for it, if you don't see it, a lot of times you're in shade, so you can't see what's coming up. You can literally knock your hands off the bar, and it did for a second. So I grabbed back on, but that caused me to kind of lose control of my bike, and I went right into the traffic lanes and heading for the opposite lane. Somehow, I was over at 45 degrees, somehow brought it back up and survived, obviously, but that's not going to always end well for a lot of folks. And if you hit those bumps, can be really freaking dangerous. And I don't think the folks who are looking at the shoulder or who are maintaining the shoulders understand that it's as important to maintain that shoulder, because that's where the cyclists go, as it is to maintain it within the travel lanes. And same with kind of keeping the debris out. A lot of times, we got these downhills, especially, the one leading down to the seafood. Sorry, Malibu Seafood. Thanks. And there's love to use that shoulder, but there's so much rock and debris on there, it's unsafe to do so. And you come around that final corner, there may be cars parked, so that's not particularly safe. So again, I appreciate you listening to the bike perspective. I think the pedestrian perspective is, pedestrian safety is obviously equally important. I will say that if you do have a lot of folks going up Latigo, if you want to redirect those folks, and I totally agree with Helena that's a mess over there, just a mess. But if Latigo is highly used, very very popular with cyclists. They love the suffering of a 7-mile climb, I guess. It's not my thing as much as it is there. But you're going to run into some conflict between those users and the cyclists that you need to take into account. But look, I was very pleased to see and gratified to see that the number one choice of the folks in this survey is to get more bike lanes, because I don't know how many of you, if any of you, have ever ridden on a PCH on a bike.
Yep.
It is a leap of faith, and not always warranted, that someone is not going to be distracted, text or otherwise, and have coming right up your rear end, and that may be the last thing you remember.
Yep. Very good. Well, thanks, David.
Thank you.
Alex, am I looking at the order here? Is Tony Reed next?
I don't really think they show an order of who did it first, but I think he has been the longest. We'll go ahead and unmute him.
We good?
Yeah, can you hear us, Tony?
Yeah, I can hear you great. Hey, thank you very much for organizing the survey and these workshops. I'm part of Marlin's CSAC, and so I try to give as much input I can and promote cycling and safe pedestrians along the PCH and around Southern California. How I view this is we really need to decide overall what the PCH is for. Like, is it going to be a highway? Are we going to keep that H? I kind of like Helen's comment, like, or do we get rid of the H or do we keep the H? Are we going to keep it as a highway and just give it to cars and let people fly down it like they're doing right now? Or are we going to redefine it for the modern era, and we're going to make it so pedestrians, cyclists, people who just want to go to the beach, people who want to go to the mountains, all of us can use it? And it's not meant for people racing. It's not meant for people commuting. I think a lot of folks in Ventura County will use the PCH as an access point to the 10 freeway. So, they are using it in lieu of like the 101 405. And I don't see its use. I don't see it like that, but a lot of people do. And I think we need to decide what the use is going to be for. And obviously, from the survey responses, I think, you have parity amongst this group of 11 folks, which, I applaud all of us. Yeah, I like the reframing of PCH altogether. Helen, I like your idea. Let's make it PC1. Let's literally redefine PCH through Malibu so that it's not the highway term is out of there. So thank you. Appreciate the time.
Thanks, Tony. Who's next, Alex?
We'll go with Shane. Shane, you're unmuted.
Everyone. There we go. I think I'm live now. This is my second virtual meeting with Caltrans, and each time, this is my second time, and I just want to applaud everybody. I've been involved with some Caltrans projects in Southern California, and you guys are doing a great job with feedback throughout the community. I forgot to introduce myself. My name's Shane. I'm part of SAFE, Streets Are For Everyone. I'm their bicycle and pedestrian advocacy coordinator. And yeah, like everyone has said in the past, it is a highway. So these surveys are great to get that initial what needs to be done, how can we make this safer, and how can we save lives. So I think the gateways, the roundabouts, turning it into a boulevard facelift is great. One thing that hasn't been talked about is possible footbridges at high stress areas, people crossing on the mountainside, getting to the beaches, vice versa to the hiking trails. So I'm up in Santa Cruz. We've got a bunch of suspended bridges for pedestrian use, and that would obviously, people are going to keep doing the speed that they are until there's significant change, and that could be something in the meantime that would alleviate some of the disasters that we've encountered on the PCH through Malibu. But I do want to thank Caltrans for putting this on, and your efforts throughout California have not gone unnoticed with these initiatives.
Thanks, Shane.
Thank you.
And I also want to make sure we're catching the chat. I know Lisa's got quite a few comments in the chat, but Alex, I'll let you decide who's next.
Yeah, we'll go with Victor. He's had his hands up, and then we can read some of the comments in the chat. Victor, you're unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. This is Victor C. Thank you so much for having this meeting and this series of surveys. I am one of the pink dots on your bicycle crash map that you put out. And so
Ouch.
I have a very close personal relationship with the PCH. And I really totally support the idea that it should be more for people and less for cars. That's been brought up by a couple of the people who've spoke. It is a terrifying experience to bike along the PCH. I love the area. I love the canyons. I love cycling around there, but it's absolutely terrifying. And I really think that if we could change that, I will do anything to help you make that happen. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor.
Thanks, Victor. All right, Lisa had a couple comments in the chat. She said beach access issues and safety concerns need to be considered and balanced. I think this is in relation to a good day to do traffic counts. They say winding way traffic study on any sunny weekend day or holiday, especially sunny days after weeks of rainfall, when the falls are running. Another comment from Lisa, Caltrans needs to assess beach access areas with traffic safety. Areas are opened up without any consideration of parking issues. Then we have a couple comments from Aaron Birdie. It says, while more concrete measures are being worked on, having more prominent signage for cars to share the road with cyclists may help mitigate some aggression from drivers.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's it for now. We'll go back to raise your hands. Helen.
Hi again, thanks for all the comments. I'm not a cyclist, but I empathize with cyclists, and I'm a driver, and I feel like I'm under threat by the cyclists, and I'm also the threat to cyclists. And I agree with the other comments. We have to decide if we're a highway or just a boulevard, because we cannot be both. We also cannot have parking on both sides of the highway and make it safe for cyclists, because it's just geographically impossible. It doesn't make, we are sandwiched between a beach and a mountain, and we have these visitors, and we should share it with everybody, but it's not safe to do so. So what's the answer? The only thing I can think of is if Coastal or whoever owns the parking on each side, I mean, don't get me started on the RVs down by Topanga. You take one of those sides, you guys pick, doesn't matter to me, or the cyclists get to pick. Do you want the beach side or the mountain side? And then you put a barrier, like you have one of these barriers where cars cannot pass it, because signs don't do anything anymore. People don't even read signs. Signs are no longer effective. You need to put a physical barrier. Now we are texting, and we have teenagers, and they're driving and they're veering, and pedestrians are no longer safe. And unfortunately, my son is starting to drive soon, and like, I worry that, because I see all the work you guys are doing on the PCH right now, none of it makes, I don't, the residents here, I think there's a little bit of a disconnect. We don't know what the projects are like, what is all of the lane closures? We have rock slides. It's a hot mess. You have something going on at Corral Canyon and PCH that bottlenecks the traffic. Nobody knows what it is. You put in like a crosswalk and then like another crosswalk right by Malibu Seafood. But what we need is like a pedestrian bridge for the Malibu Seafood people to get over to the beach and the beach people to get over to Malibu Seafood. We don't need two crosswalks. Do you know where I'm talking about? Corral Canyon? Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah. And I think like if there was some like a connection between the residents and their street, this highway is our one way in and one way out. It's our driveway to the city. We have no idea why we're sitting in 2-hour traffic half the time. And then people wonder why other, like, people are angry and they're walking around because they've sat in traffic But if we knew why, and I would say, gosh, I can't wait for that roundabout to come, or I can't wait for that gateway to happen, I would be a little bit more patient with it. But I guess those are my comments. Even a little curb for the bike cyclist, you could do a two-way, like up north and south on one side of the highway, and let the cyclists live, and drivers drive. That's it.
Thanks, Helen.
Thank you for listening. I appreciate your time.
Yeah. Who's next, Alex?
Ian?
All right. Thank you so much. And I really appreciate this conversation. So I live in Santa Monica and I'm a recreational visitor to Malibu, but because of all the reasons that have been described here, I rarely, if ever, go to Malibu because as a cyclist, I'm afraid for my life. And as another visitor, or as a pedestrian, it's also all the discussions about the highway being a highway and that people people who are going 60, 70 miles an hour don't see it as a place for people to cross or for people to ride their bikes. So I just appreciate all of the conversation that's had here, and that Caltrans is listening so that it can eventually hopefully be a place where I would feel more comfortable recreating, because it currently is not welcoming.
Thanks, Ian.
Cahill?
Great, thank you. Hi, I'm a planning commissioner in Malibu. I've lived here most of the time since 1969. I've watched the previous workshop session. I have a few minutes of notes here, first general, then more specific. I think PCH is pretty unique in being a de facto freeway that bisects mostly residential neighborhoods, plus some complex arrangement of business egresses. And it may make sense, just as Malibu is considered a very high fire hazard severity zone, for people to think of PCH as a very high traffic hazard severity zone. I think many of the fixes won't be inherently about the physical modifications. They won't be so much questions about, do we put delineator paddles here or K-rails there? It's more essentially about changing behavior and expectations, that it's not a freeway. And that probably means real-time education through signage. It means finding some way to discourage the Z traffic commuters who are in a rush. And I did write up some ideas for Rob Dubois. He seemed to like them, but they haven't gotten more air. And we need to find ways to discourage the idea that Malibu isn't, or that Malibu is a destination to go drinking or road racing late at night. And so that's also largely an enforcement problem. I think the boulevard idea for the central visitor serving district is great. Gateways, yes, that does say something, that is a perception thing. But you can't do that in any way that would eliminate the center emergency pathway. We regularly have traffic jams where the center lane is the only access. Nor can we reduce parking. We're already woefully short of parking in many areas. That's an ongoing issue on the Planning Commission. With every new development applications, there's never enough parking. The parking needs to serve both sides in almost all areas. Otherwise, you compound the pedestrian hazards. And on that note, your graph of crash data from the last session shows pedestrians as only 5% of crashes, but they do represent disproportionately higher injuries and fatalities. And so a key thing would be to find a way to deter pedestrians from crossing halfway. Again, that might be educational signage at key entrances to the city. And on a side note on that, yeah, the beach fence down between La Costa and Carbon does represent an attractive nuisance, enticing people to run across the road there. Now, as for bike lanes, I grew up here, but I've lived elsewhere. I lived in Seattle for almost a decade, where I lived on my bike. Like 90% of my errands, I love bikes for many, many reasons. But here we have multiple issues. On the Planning Commission, we've dealt with trying to do bike lanes several times. And I think it could work in some places on the highway, but it doesn't make sense to have short, safe sections between dangerous sections. So it would somehow have to be all or nothing all the way from Santa Monica, right? And it would be great to accommodate the bikes better, but we're dealing with a finite space with many of these competing overlapping uses. And so the lanes would probably provide greater safety in some cases, but maybe create other problems, not least by attracting more people to come out riding their bikes to be seduced to take on the PCH gauntlet. So that's a really hairy problem to me. I don't know that we have adequate road width. I know you're going to be doing a survey on where the right of way really lays. But I've looked at the road width math, and I don't see how you could put in an isolated bike lane without giving up parking on at least one side, which I don't think we can do. Getting close to the end here of my comments. We've looked at roundabouts. My wife is Australian. I know roundabouts pretty well, and I like them, but we haven't identified any areas that provide a sufficient radius within the legal right of way. So I think when you add all the factors together and what needs to still be there, there's not much physical that could be changed, with a few exceptions, without compromising some already existing need. And that directs us to the 35-mile-an-hour limit. And I'm aware of the legal mandate, the 85% speed criteria, et cetera. So I think, the solution now is to either put in temporary measures to get the speed down for the definitional survey, or get the law changed, as I know is in progress. It'd be good to know more about how far along that is. And then finally, you probably have it already, but the city has I think it was 2015, they did a pretty detailed collision study that has maps,
Right.
data broken down by all along the highway. So those are my comments for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll read some of the comments we got in the chat from Tony. Make the lanes more narrow and give space to pedestrians and cyclists. Helen, come visit Malibu on a sunny weekend and come to Winding Way and then continue to Paradise Cove. You need to see what you're working with. Lisa Garrett, Malibu and PCH isn't just a recreation area. It's a community with local residents, and PCH is our primary roadway. The needs of the residents who commute to work and drive between different areas of Malibu need to be weighed with any road improvements. Also, fire safety and other emergency access is another important consideration. Lisa Garrett again, speed cameras will lower the speed to 45. Going back to people who have had their hand raised.
We haven't heard from Andrea.
Yeah, Andrea. Oh, Andrea, you're unmuted.
Can y'all hear me or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the organizers for having this call. I also want to thank David for his specific insight as a cyclist. And Helen, you've been a rock star on this whole thing. You're kind of like my hero. This evening, you're incredibly knowledgeable, and I've learned a lot just listening to you. I'm a little bit different from most people on this call. I don't live anywhere along the coast. I'm a West Hollywood resident, longtime West Hollywood resident, and I just hit my cycleversary, my first year in June, and that also marks about the same time I've been carless. My car was totaled last summer, so I've been on the bike ever since. I'm preparing for my first century ride in Big Bear next Saturday, and in all my planning, thank you. And in planning all of my training and building everything up, looking at where I could ride, getting in the climbing. I'll tell you what, the last couple of weeks, obviously summer has officially arrived in Los Angeles, and when I had my car, I never liked driving on the PCH, and it was the one place I just swore I'm going to just brave the PCH. I'm going to try to get to some of these canyons that I've read about and see if I can navigate some of the ones that are a little less trafficked according to what I see on message boards and what have you. So one I 100% to see blowback on some of the bike lanes that were protected bike lanes here on the Hollywood Boulevard. The traffic is horrendous, so we'll see how long those bike lanes stay up. But the only reason I ended up cycling all the way to the end, there just weren't enough bike rack spots for my particular bike. There was only 3 spots, and like, you know, the buses there only cycle, at least on the weekend, they only come around every 40, 50 minutes or so. So I decided I didn't want to rate. And I know this is more of an LA Metro thing, and they're facing their very own unique set of challenges right now. But from my vantage point, as kind of a still fairly new cyclist, I would definitely come out to the canyons more if I knew that, okay, I missed this bus, but for all day, you know, I came by, you know, that Chevron a couple of times just to refuel and get some stuff. And if I wasn't so tired, I probably would have popped down to a restaurant. I think you would see more cyclists obviously come through Malibu, and there were more. I know this is a huge challenge. I would just, if there's any way to have more conversations with LA Metro about having more buses run, or even have a different kind of bus system. I don't know what the answer is there, but like you said, fully respectful, but I'll tell you what, even at 6 a.m. writing up, I was just like, okay, this is, everyone's been talking about, is it a highway or is it a road? What is it? I told my mom, who was obviously very concerned for my safety, I said, even at 6, even at 6 a.m. So yeah, obviously I wasn't one of those counts on those banners that I saw talking about, you know, number of deaths on the PCH. That definitely caught my attention. And yeah, I just want safety for me. As a driver, I remember. So that's it. I'll yield my time back. Thank you so much for listening to my rambling, everybody.
Thanks, Andrea. David, do you have more comments? Or is your hand up from before?
Yeah, just wanted to just mention one thing. I'm sorry that I don't remember the commissioner's name or didn't catch it, but you know, the notion that it will be more dangerous if we get more cyclists out here, I guess, to the cyclists. You know, it just seems like, gosh, are we just giving up and saying, let's just keep it dangerous and they'll keep more cyclists off the road and there'll be more lives saved? Or are we going to try and make this safer for cyclists? Because you're always going to have cyclists. And frankly, the more cyclists you get out here, the safer it becomes, because drivers, and I think this is well documented, motorists are more cognizant and it will expect cyclists. You know, the more cyclists you see, either whether it's in a peloton or whether it's just out on the road, they're just saying, okay, there are cyclists on the road. They're going to be more aware and looking out for it. And I do agree. I mean, obviously there are huge challenges in the parking, but I think you can kind of divide the city up into 2 sections for that context or that question. One is between Topanga and Cross Creek, where parking is going to be is already impacted and be very difficult. I can understand to put lanes in there, although it's probably where we need them the most. But from beyond there out to county, you know, to the end of city limits, you know, there is parking, but it's not as intense and it seems to be more manageable. You know, you obviously Winding Way and the pocket beaches get a lot of road parking. But and there's a few other places along the way, and a lot of parties, people park, and that's one of the more dangerous things. But it seems like it may be more manageable, and there may be, you know, potential bus park options to hikes and things like that.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had one more question. Somebody raised the 80% rule, and I want to make sure I understand it because I'm a lawyer. I've looked at the statute. I didn't find any regulations. I mean let me back up. The statute says, yeah, it has this 80% rule, but it also says you have to take into account risks to cyclists and to pedestrians. And it doesn't tell you how, and I have not seen a single regulation that tells you how. And I think I've even looked at your manual on setting speed limits. I don't see why we can't, or Caltrans can't, just weight the risk to cyclists and pedestrians more to deal with that risk. And I also think that Caltrans, I think they look at risk as a function of number of motor vehicles on the road versus accidents. But that puts that just means folks can barrel through Malibu, without tens of thousands of motorists who don't live here, and wreak all this havoc along the way, and then it doesn't really register. The folks that are the Malibu is the one that is suffering this. We are suffering the brunt of those accidents. As I said before, by any other measure other than just vehicle miles, this stretch of highway out here between Las Flores and Carbon is probably the most dangerous in the country. And according to the California's Office of Traffic Safety, which just ranks it based upon number of deaths per mile, which I think is the fair way to deal with that. We are the most dangerous city in the state, or in PCH is the most dangerous place in the state, and we're also one of the most dangerous places, probably top 5 in the country. I mean, that's just basing it on vehicle miles doesn't take into account the death toll and the injury toll to a fairly small population here in Malibu. And so I'm hoping Caltrans can kind of work around this idea that 80% is locked in stone. It's not. I do not see a statutory reason why you cannot give more weight to pedestrian and bicycle accidents. Thanks.
Very good. Thanks, David. Just a point of clarification. It's my understanding of the most recent legislation that we can come 5 miles under what the speed surveys show. Lee, is there anything to add to that? But the other point I wanted to make is that even if we post the speed limit at a lower level, design of the roadway determines the speed much more than posted speed limits do. So it'll be important for us to
right. Well, it's this whole idea of crowdsourcing the speed limit, right? A big, broader roadway encourages higher speeds, but I just don't think motorists perceive risk to themselves and to other cars. Yes. They don't perceive the risk to cyclists and pedestrians because you know what? They don't see them. They don't pay attention. That's why they hit them.
Yeah. Lee, is my understanding of the most recent ruling legislation on that correct?
There's a lot of nuances. So AB 43 passed. There was follow-up legislation to do some cleanup. I don't remember the assembly bill number that did some additional cleanup.
Yeah.
But the speed limit setting is placed. It's covered in the California Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is pulled from the Federal Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is technically a federal regulation based on U.S. code. So we work back through that, and what the items there is 85th percentile, and we are allowed to take some reductions. We have rounding rules, whether we round up or down, and then whether we can take additional reductions from the 85th percentile. And AB 43 set some rules for roads that are handled by local agencies. So because State Route 1 is a state highway, the additional reduction that could be taken under certain circumstances does not apply on the state highway system. That additional reduction that can be taken is an additional 5 miles an hour. The circumstances that applies to is that a city or a local entity that handles the roadway has to declare it a safety corridor, and they are limited to 20% of their mileage having that designation. So there's a lot of different rules, and I'm happy to go over that further with Mr. Cranston. I appreciate him looking at it. I believe he said he's an attorney, so he has a different way of reading things, I think, at times than others do, and I'm happy to talk about some of the risk aspects. I do hear what he's saying, though, with some of the measurements and how we balance things. So, I understand his concerns and don't want to disregard them, because I think he's speaking from a point of concern and wanting to do things better. So we see that. We're working on doing this. We did do some spot speed surveys for some stretches back in November. Staff typically take them in areas outside of the peak periods of traffic use, meaning when we have the most traffic volume. So we tend to go probably more after 9 a.m., more like 9 a.m., 10 a.m., lunchtime, early afternoon. We were getting really high speeds through some areas that would have led, if we had proceeded and were to do a full analysis, it would have led us to increase the speed limit. So
something's
so
got
I just, and I know that can be hard to believe, but we take a minimum of 100 readings of speed in a segment, and we set it at 85th percentile. Then we do a rounding application, and we round up or round down depending upon what the number is. And then we have rules under which we can take a reduction. And so that's what our team works through. And we looked at this. So if you have periods of the day where the speeds are lower, I'll be happy to take your input on those offline if you want to give me some.
No, that's not, I obviously, I mean, there's something wrong if folks are going faster than even the 45, and that's why
they were going significantly faster. I believe that our team had at least one vehicle they got doing over 80. There might have been a couple of them, and so that's the challenge. I've been up there multiple times, both daytime and nighttime, and in some ways, speeding is worse at night, especially in the northern area north of Trancas when we're up there.
Well, the speeding is also pretty bad. Again, coming back to not just because this is where I live, but between between Las Flores and Carbon Canyon, you have mostly residential homes on both sides. You have probably 100 or more driveways, and I don't understand why that doesn't. There isn't some sort of residential, element to setting a speed limit that would would reflect the increased risk, because you're first of all, it's narrow, there are no sidewalks, and you got all these driveways with this curve. It's a crazily dangerous, folks. So people are coming in from the east and then or coming in from the west. Either way, they're used to kind of a wider, faster highway, and they come into this section, and that's why we have more car accidents around the intersection of Las Flores and PCH than anywhere else in Malibu. And that's why we have more pedestrian deaths, including the four that started this whole thing.
Yeah, the driving behaviors that I've observed, though, I've seen people passing long traffic queues at a pretty good clip using the two-way left turn lane. They're not law enforcement. They're working to get around the queue. They're queue jumpers. I've just observed that myself, and it's a sad commentary on the area.
I agree. I've never seen it anyplace else.
So, but I hear you. Our team is looking at it. We are trying to get through items and see what else we can do. And we're also aware that this section of Route 1 is designated an evacuation route. And so we have some different things we have to keep in consideration with that as well at the same time. And we're also aware that emergency responders, so sheriffs, CHP, LA County Fire, et cetera, utilize the two-way left turn lanes to get around a lot of the queues there as well when traffic's heavy, and so that they have some better times on emergency response. And so our team has been having some discussions with the city. We're trying to come up with some unique design perspectives if we can to make some changes on that, but allow the emergency responders to be able to get through there. And then some of our team, we've thrown some different ideas around for some things we might be able to do while also maintaining the emergency evacuation route status on the items. And if it had to be turned into an evacuation route, would not get in the way of that necessity.
Yeah. All right, we've got a couple more people with hands up.
Yeah, I want to address one question in the chat from Lisa Garrett. It says, why aren't speed cameras referenced in the survey sections?
The survey that we just conducted, it's really about cross-sectional elements, you know, what we can fit in the amount of space that we have. But certainly, you know, that's one of the countermeasures that we can consider.
Okay, and this is a follow-up comment from Lisa. Just says red light and speed cameras are proven methods to moderate driver behavior and improve safety. We can go to Helen. She's had her hand raised for a while. Helen, you're unmuted.
Oh, I thank you. Put my comments in the chat. Basically, should I reread them or do you not see them? So we are also a dark ordinance. You have to remember that we have a dark ordinance in Malibu. And so as lovely as that is, because we love to see the stars, we don't see street signs. We don't see 4 beautiful Pepperdine students waiting on a curb for an Uber. You have to remember, we don't see driveways. We don't see turnoffs. So please keep that in mind as well. And I'm not saying anything about taking the dark night away. It's just we have to come up with creative solutions. And we are such an anomaly here in Malibu because we're sequestered to use this this highway. And just like I'm also saying, like, I'm pro-cyclist because I'm anti-racers. So I will take cyclists all day long because they don't kill people like cars do. And cyclists are like the means to my end in some ways. So if we can control the highway and it be safe for cyclists, that means that it might be safe for my kids to drive on. That means that you've gotten it under control enough to make it make sense. You also, I think Lisa mentioned it, beach accesses, you really need to research Malibu. It is a very specific area where I cannot stress this enough. We don't have a lot of power or City Hall. It's the Coastal Commission and then it's the Mountain Rec. So we have beach accesses that should not be. I love the public and I grew up in New York and it was just different there because the beaches were safe and you had a parking lot and you had a concession stand, you had bathrooms, you had trash cans. But here they literally, and you'll never change this. So you have to work with what you've got. They have like no parking, but a sign and social media saying for everybody to come and come to these like slivers of beach without explaining the high mean tides and that there's no lifeguard and they leave their baby diapers. And so the thing is that like it's a huge cluster and the Caltrans has to control it. You guys are somehow like the control tower of safety for us. But you really, I think somebody from you guys has to do like a bunch of due diligence on the access points. I don't know if you have you guys done a study on the access points?
Not yet.
You guys are so far, and I love it, but you're so far from getting, like, I hate to be the negative person here because I'm actually full of hope. You guys are so far away from making these changes because really you have to learn a little bit more about the beach, the environmental, the mountains, the recreation. Unfortunately, I wish it was easier than that, but that's my point. And I do believe in you. If you look at Zuma, and you look at, for those who know what I'm talking about, Spruzo's, the shopping center, and you look at Westward Beach, and then you look at Bonsall and Bush, and you have all of those turnarounds. It's a perfect place to put a demo roundabout. You don't have to do concrete. You don't have to change anything. You could do a study. You could do there are so many veins and arteries of the PCH right there. And it's so incredibly dangerous that like it is your perfect place to do a pedestrian bridge or first do the little baby roundabout and look at that. Take a look at that, please. Thank you.
Very good. We have not heard from Carol yet.
You're unmuted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so thank you all for doing this. I just wanted to add one quick comment. I appreciate all the comments I've been hearing about people really wanting to make real change to really improve safety. And I just want to really emphasize the fact that it's going to take a lot more than just paint and signs. And remind everyone that, there's a lot of like drivers versus cyclists debates. And I want to remind everyone that cyclists and people who use PCH in any way other than the car aren't just people who do it recreationally. There are many of us, including myself, who do not have the option to drive. Either it's because of like a health condition, age, financial reasons, or by choice. And so, as of right now, when those of us who do not have that option use PCH, we're basically told that our lives don't matter. And it's incredibly terrifying. It makes it really hard to get anywhere. Using the bus is not always an option. It was mentioned earlier, it sometimes takes a really long time to get on the bus. Sometimes you can't get on the bus. If you have a bike and the rack is full, or maybe some people have an electric bike and can't get on the bus. So I just want to make sure that people who are outside of a car are really taken into consideration when these surveys are being done and when changes are being made, so that this highway can actually be accessible for all people and not just those who have the option to drive.
Thanks, Carol. Tony. Okay, maybe your hand wasn't up.
Nope, sorry, I think I lowered their hand. Tony.
Okay, yeah, hi. I'll be quick because I know we're over time. I just wanted to respond to what Kay Hill was saying. He was mentioning that education is the key to changing behavior, but Helen mentioned this earlier. People don't read signs. I'm going to agree with that. And anyone who knows anything about safety knows that engineering controls work much better than signage does for behavioral change. So, I mean, that's what we're really looking at today. And I really appreciate, like, again, your time and like, what we're talking about. The second thing is bike lanes. If we only got bike lanes in between some of the canyons, that would be better than no bike lane. I mean, I want bike lanes all the way between, from Santa Monica all the way up, but I will take any bike lane at this point since we have none. Also, talking about the amount of traffic that's going through Malibu, hopefully there's going to be a bit less traffic because people they're going to be pushed back to the 101 405. So they're not going to be using Malibu as a thoroughfare. And the last bit about roundabouts, I like the idea of trying out roundabouts. I don't know what the data actually says, for how the safety is for cyclists and pedestrians. It might be less for, less collisions for cars, but I don't know. I've never seen a study for how roundabout affects cyclists and pedestrians. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I think, Helen, do you have one more comment?
I do. I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm so passionate. So I'd like to add that those bike lanes, like in my vision, would also act as if like a walkway, so that because we're such a disjointed, divided community, my kids can't get to neighborhoods and like they can't visit their friends. But could you imagine a safe place to walk? It would be incredible if I could walk up to Point Doom from my house and take a stroll or have my baby and have a stroller. And if New York City can do it with high lines on 22 miles of an island, you guys can do this. You just have to have some creativity and some support, and you have to do some really good due diligence, because New York City has that whole West Side Highway now, and it's beautiful. And they're sandwiched between two rivers. So that's it. But I commend you. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, get ready to close out here. I mean, I think we've gotten a really good sense of the challenges. I mean, we've got limited right-of-way. We've got need for better bike facilities, better pedestrian facilities. We've got a need for emergency access, got a need for parking. So if we're going to change things, something's got to give, and your input, I think, is very valuable. I noticed Rafael Molina is here. Rafael is our Deputy for Traffic Operations. Did you want to say anything before we close out, Rafael? Can we unmute him?
Or late afternoon here. Good afternoon, Ryan. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I've been able to hear most of the dialogue this evening. It's a wonderful opportunity for us to hear the concerns from the community. And as we move forward towards making the Pacific Coast, I hate to say highway, maybe Pacific Coast one that was mentioned earlier, a better place for all users. This is a good opportunity for us, and looking forward to continued engagement with the community overall as we move forward to a better SR1. Thank you.
Thanks, Rafael. Okay, I think we're done. So thank you so much for attending. Helen, is your hand still up? One last comment?
Nope, I'm done. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. So we're going to take this information and do what we can. Again, we're going to look at the traffic volumes and road width and crash history and everything else and all these comments and see if there's, what we can come up with. Marlon, did you want to say anything in closing?
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, everyone, for this great feedback. A lot of wonderful feedback tonight. I think we've learned a lot about how people feel about the safety, opportunities, challenges, barriers, and we're going to take in a lot of that feedback, all of that feedback, and make sure that that is moving forward, something that we think about. And there's a lot of opportunities here. So just want to appreciate everyone's time tonight. I know it's later night, and appreciate everyone's time. So thank you.
Thanks, Marlon. So one last thing, Elena, are you with the MRCA? Can we unmute her?
Yes, I am.
I would like to get a chance to talk with you later on. Can you please, I guess you registered and left your contact information.
She put her contact information in the chat to us. I have it.
At the very beginning, I did, yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I think it would be useful for us to meet. So thank you.